Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Exceptional Conservative Show live from the nation's capital. So glad to have you all here this evening with a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to talk with a tremendous scholar in the field of litigation and law. With us tonight, attorney with Pacific Legal Foundation, as we continue our highlight of the Pacific Legal Foundation. Mr. Farr, I gotta ask you here, because I'm quite certain people are knocking down the doors at Pacific Legal Foundation to clerk. I'm quite certain that you maybe have one or two applicants, right? You probably have a lot of applicants that are clerking, that want to clerk with Pacific Legal Foundation. First and foremost, what are some of the things that you look for in an individual who wants to clerk at Pacific Legal?
Well, we look for, first and foremost, we look for a demonstrated interest in a few different areas. We want you to be interested in liberty and fighting for liberty, not just in legal arena, but perhaps in a think tank or a public policy arena. We look for people who have been well-read on books dealing with liberty, who are well-read about constitutional law and appellate litigation generally. We look for people who are more broader than that, hardworking and good writers, and will show up every day looking to work and looking to learn. So we look for people with various different characteristics, but at the end of the day, you have to be, to sum it up in one sentence, you have to be passionate about litigating for liberty, and that's the type of person we look for in a clerk at Pacific Legal Foundation.
Now, there's some people that would say, well, I do read a lot and I do my writing, but I'm kind of quiet. I'm to myself. Does that person have an opportunity? What would be best for that person to try to apply themselves?
Well, everybody's got different personalities, and I certainly don't fault people if they're more introverted or extroverted or
exactly
anything else. But I think to make the most of your clerkship with Pacific Legal Foundation, you have to take advantage of the opportunity you have to get to know the attorneys, to get to know the staff, because law, in essence, involves, what we do here at Pacific Legal Foundation involves dealing with people. So even if you're an introvert, I think you can force yourself to stop by someone's office to ask what kind of cases they're working on, or stop by your mentor's office and say, how can I improve my abilities as a litigator for liberty? So I think, we all have our personalities, but there's...
I only asked you in regards to clerking, because I'm hoping that people will pick up the phone or follow up. Firstly, what is the deadline for application for clerking at Pacific Legal?
I don't think we have a hard deadline.
Okay.
We take applications on a rolling basis. But what I would say is I would encourage applicants to apply early, because a lot of times we have so many good applicants. We have more great applicants than we thought we would be getting. So by the time we see someone who would otherwise be qualified to work at Pacific Legal Foundation, that might be too late for that person because we've already filled up our summer class. So I would really encourage applicants to get their applications in early.
What if I come to you and tell you, this is my final question regarding clerking. Not that this has ever happened before, but I already know everything about the law, and so I'm coming to do something for you. How's that going to work at Pacific Legal Foundation?
Well, honestly, I don't think anybody ever knows everything about the law.
Yeah.
And that's one of the great things about being a lawyer, is that you're always learning, and you're always finding ways to improve and learning new things and sort of honing your craft. And, even if you did know a lot about the law one year, the law changes from day to day based on opinions, of course, all over the country. And that's, in fact, what we try to do at Pacific Legal Foundation. So I would encourage those people just to keep an open mind and continue learning.
So it's good to be coachable and malleable in terms of the process of learning, right?
Absolutely. Even if the government doesn't like them. So I think what we've been seeing, especially in the last, 3 to 5 years, is increasingly governments beginning to control messages. Messages that they don't like, messages that they think are politically incorrect, messages that are offensive. But frankly, people should be able to say those messages. And the way to respond to a bad idea isn't to censor that bad idea, it's to come out with your own better idea.
I've gotten to a point now where if someone opines and it offends, that free speech is told, we're told that free speech needs to be limited. What are the forms of limiting free speech in America?
Well, the restrictions on free speech takes many, many forms. In one instance, for example, you can have voters being told that they can't express their political viewpoint even on election day because just the act of wearing a T-shirt that might be construed as political could land you with substantial fines or even with some jail time. You have, other speech restrictions on college campuses, for example, that basically allow, through many of the speech restrictions in America today, is just restrictions that give one government bureaucrat a lot of power, a lot of discretion to limit basically speech that he or she doesn't like. But that's not the way America works, and that's not the way the First Amendment is meant to work.
I have to ask you, we were talking with Winfall with Pacific Legal Foundation. He's an attorney there and also in charge of clerking. Winkety wink, you need to put your application in for the summer, ladies and gentlemen. With Pacific Legal Foundation, defending liberty and justice for all. Now, in terms of free speech, is there a natural limit to free speech based on what our founding fathers spoke of? And shouldn't we be kind to one another? Wouldn't it be nice if we had manners with our free speech?
Well, I think you're asking a couple separate questions there.
Yes.
One, how should people behave culturally, things like that. And, honestly, some people are nicer than others, and, they behave in a way that most people find socially acceptable. But where the First Amendment comes in is what the government can do when someone behaves in a culturally unacceptable way or a culturally different way. And, my contention to you is the government should not be able to throw someone in jail just for being mean or just for being rude or just for saying something offensive. America is about a marketplace of ideas. It's built on the notion that, look, if someone says something you don't like, you should say something in response and have your ideas win out in the marketplace of ideas. It's not built on the notion that the government should somehow pick winners and losers in the marketplace of ideas and throw messages that it doesn't like, throw people who express messages that the government doesn't like in jail. That's a very dangerous idea, and that's what the First Amendment is meant to protect against. Now,
according to our founding fathers, in terms of the nature of the First Amendment, the free speech option, does that apply to college campuses and workplaces equally?
Well, it certainly applies in both of those places. I think it applies generally more in the context of college campuses because those are areas in which there's more likely to be government action. The First Amendment only applies to government actions. So, if I ask someone, had a contract with someone else to say, well, look, if you post these sorts of things on social media, then I might not want to pay you for doing this type of work. That might raise different concerns, but less so First Amendment concerns. The reason that the First Amendment really applies on college campuses is because we have a lot of these public universities, government entities, regulating what students can and can't say, who students can or can't invite to speak on campuses. And they're doing it usually a lot of times in a very politically biased way. And that's very dangerous that the government can be controlling the thoughts of college students in that way. And it's frankly unconstitutional under the First Amendment.
Well, should the President of the United States sign an executive order forcing public universities to allow free speech?
Well, the executive order, I would say, is, it's pretty. It could use a little bit more detail from what I understand. And further, I don't think we should be at the point where a president needs to sign an executive order because there's something that protects free speech on campuses, the First Amendment. So I think what the university should do is respect the First Amendment of the United States, respect the rights of college students to engage in free speech, and to let the ideas play out rather than censoring students on college campuses.
Winfall with us tonight. He's attorney with Pacific Legal Foundation, pacificlegal.org, pacificlegal.org. They, for free, defend the liberty of our nation and fight for your equal rights, justice for all. And just follow the president signing an executive order. If we have gotten to a point that we must sign an executive order for there to be free speech on public campuses, then should public colleges pay a price for not allowing free speech? Should they be penalized? Should they be fined? Should they lose federal aid?
Well, it's interesting to bring that up because that's what we do here at Pacific Legal Foundation. We sue government entities for violating constitutional rights, for violating individual liberties. And when colleges censor people, restrict the rights of students to engage in free speech protected by the First Amendment, then we have organizations like Pacific Legal Foundation ready to bring lawsuits to vindicate the constitutional rights, not just of the students, but I would say of all Americans, because we all have a vested interest in the First Amendment to the United States Constitution. And that's what Pacific Legal Foundation is here to do. It's here to vindicate those rights.
Well, we thank you for doing that. There is a recent case that you've been working on, and the
candidate on the ballot, for example, someone in 2008 got in trouble for wearing an Alaska souvenir shirt just because an election worker thought it was too related to them. Oh, well, if you wear a T-shirt that is too resembles another candidate, then people will be too pressured to vote for that candidate. But, in America, I think we all have the ability and the right to make up our own minds. Someone shouldn't have to go to jail. By the way, it's a criminal offense in Texas to wear a T-shirt that too resembles a political candidate or too related to a political candidate. But someone shouldn't have to go to jail for wearing a T-shirt or a hat. That's simply not America.
How can you be upset because someone's wearing a T-shirt that says MAGA or says Go Trump or something? Is that really forcing American people to change their mind? Is there any evidence to that effect?
No, there's no evidence that I know of to that effect. And even if it did change someone's mind, this is America. I the purpose of political speech was to try to persuade your fellow citizens. When did that become a offense punishable by jail time? And in fact, that's one of our clients in Dallas, Texas. He wore a Make America Great Again hat to the polling place, and an election worker threatened him with arrest, even though President Trump wasn't even on the ballot in the 2018 midterm elections. So that is, it's frankly outrageous.
It's ludicrous.
We brought a First Amendment lawsuit to vindicate that person's constitutional rights and the constitutional rights of all Texans.
Now, a lot of people say, well, sure, you'll bring this lawsuit, it'll get a little press or whatever, people will talk about it, but has there been any validity in bringing such lawsuits? Are there any victories to speak of?
In fact, there is. In 2018, in June, I was a part of a litigation team here at Pacific Legal Foundation that won a case at the Supreme Court of the United States. Basically, the state of Minnesota said that you can't wear any political T-shirt at the polling place when you vote in Minnesota. And the Supreme Court had said that was an unconstitutional restriction on the right to free speech. And that was proven at oral argument before the Supreme Court when Justice Alito of the Supreme Court asked the government's attorney, would you ban a T-shirt with the Second Amendment on it? And the attorney said, yes, that would be banned. And what about the First Amendment? No, that wouldn't be banned. It really highlights arbitrary discriminatory enforcement on the part of the government.
Really? Someone actually said that to the Supreme Court? I'm amazed. I'm simply amazed. Now, I want to ask you a finality here. There are lots of people, as we're coming up on 2020, who are going to be discouraged from their patriotism by going into the polls and wearing T-shirts or hats or maybe even wearing a flag pin, as a patriot to vote. What should they do? Should they get angry? Should they fuss and yell at the people who are telling them to take the shirts off and the hats off? Or should they come to you all?
Well, we evaluate every case on a case-by-case basis. We don't take every case that comes to us. But, I think that if their constitutional rights are being violated, then they should definitely at least give us a call and see what we'll see what we can do to protect constitutional rights, because that's what we do at Pacific Legal Foundation. We defend constitutional rights. We defend liberty and justice for all, and that's our job here at Pacific Legal Foundation.
And are there other attorneys around the country that may be able to help them where they are in that particular process as well?
Well, actually, Pacific Legal Foundation is pretty much everywhere. All
there you go.
Country. I'm based in California. Some of my colleagues are based in Washington, D.C., Utah, Arizona, Indiana, you name it. And we take cases all over the country.
There you go. So
California.
Yeah.
I litigate in Texas, Minnesota, a bunch of different places.
Exactly. So if they don't have to all run to Sacramento in order, there are enough of you great attorneys around the country that are willing to fight to protect our liberties. How can people get in contact with you at pacificlegal.org?
Well, they can certainly find us on our website at pacificlegal.org, or they can, contact us by phone, which is also on the pacificlegal.org website. I have to say, I think you have some great listeners, and we look forward to hearing from them.
Well, thank you, Winfar, for being with us tonight. Winfar, attorney with Pacific Legal Foundation, pacificlegal.org. If you believe that you have been discriminated against in free speech, you need to pick up the phone or send them an email and let them know. They can probably help you out. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back with more of the best right after these messages from some great people that support us. And again, thank you, Winfar, for being with us.
Thank you.